Women Leadership in Business Foundation, I would like to welcome you and our speakers. We are really honored today to have with us our very honored distinguished guests. And I'd like to thank you very much for accepting the invitation of being with us today in this important week. I also would like to thank Rzeczpospolita, for Rzeczpospolita Daily, I should say, for being such a great partner in our endeavor. Thank you so much, really, for that. So please welcome Ms. Monika Gorgoń, member of the Management Board of the Warsaw Stock Exchange, Ms. Hedwig Juens, CEO of the International Banking Federation and also Chair of European Women on Boards, Ms. Maria Sipila, Board Director and Vice Chair of European Women on Boards, Mr. Artli Stannard, I apologize, Special Advisor and European Union Public Policy Expert. Very, very warm welcome and thank you really for sharing the time. I'm positive that this discussion will provide important insights into the European Union Directive Women on Boards and also about the implementation of it. But equally, I think it is important to say in which context, what is the context in which we are discussing always this particular topic. So our foundation of Women Leadership in Business, has been created by leaders, both women and men. Leaders who bring diverse business experiences and also share the common idea. The idea is promotion of entrepreneurship, talent development, and supporting women's talent in the business. And the ultimate objective of everything we do on a daily basis is really to provide business and provide society with opportunity to use all talent available in the country and on the markets. With the current demographic trends, with the current global war for talent, I strongly believe this is prerequisite for economic and social development of our countries, whichever country we represent. I think this is the same topic that we are trying to address. And in the heart of our activity, it is to build consensus about this topic. Building consensus, building bridges on this topic is actually very important for us. And also equally important for us is to provide those opportunities for development for both men and women. So as part of our programs, foundation programs, we actually provide these opportunities to both women and men and create the common grant for ensuring that the talent is used. And in the essence of that, in the essence of our leadership, in the essence of our work, we work with different stakeholders, building consensus, as I already said, and bridges. So we work with different stakeholders groups, policymakers, politicians, different political, business and social networks, and all of this with a view to build and create an environment that will allow the countries, and my country also, Poland, in which I operate with the foundation, to use the best talent for the growth of the country. So I hope that today's discussion that is moderated by Ms. Anita Błaszczak, a very well-known journalist from Rzeczpospolita, but also very known journalist on this particular topic, will give us more knowledge and insights about how we can use also the directive in that view, with that objective, to ensure that we are using all the talent available and we are building better societies. So thank you once again for that. And let me also welcome Mr. Aris Dimitriadis, who also joined us as our guest and speaker. Mr. Dimitriadis, Good morning. Mr. Dimitriadis is Executive Director, Compliance and ERM, and also Insurance OTE Group. So with that, with the full house, Anita, please, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll try to be precise and brief. And my first question is to Mrs. Nuyens. You have been advocating for years for gender balance in executive committees and boardrooms in Europe. And we have a lot of research confirming that gender balance is good for companies, is good for economy. But it seems that we had a lot of carrot. And it seems that only the stick, so the prospect of introducing regulation with sanctions, has brought real changes in Europe, has forced companies to really look at their boards and the gender balance. What were the major obstacles and barriers for gender balance in Europe, and what were the turning points in implementation of Directive, which has been worked for almost a decade, yes?
Yes, and I really like this question because it enables us to understand how change can be driven across Europe. Because actually in 2012, there were already a couple of countries that started with targets. And we will see later on in this webinar how those targets have worked. But what was really at stake here is the clear wish of the European Commission and the European Parliament to set a target across all the member states in the European Union. And that means that you need a dialogue. It means that you have to convince all the member states or a majority of the member states to vote. And for a very long time, and that was a movement led by Germany, there was opposition for all kinds of reasons. Some countries like Germany were against because it was imposing additional regulation, and they didn't really think that that target was needed. Other countries like Sweden very much believe in gender equality, but thought it was not up to Europe or Brussels to interfere. So the last lesson I want to share with you is that when you really believe in something, when you have such powerful allies as the Commission and the Parliament, you should never give up. This directive was called the Sleeping Beauty in Brussels. It was not done. Everyone thought after 10 years it will never be revived. And look at this. In 2022, we managed to use the best constellation we had with a couple of changes at political level, and we managed to get a directive and a majority. So I would say this is an example of how difficult it can be, but it's also an example of by persevering that you can get the directive. And now this is also passed into legislation into the national states.
Thank you very much. And one additional question, because it seems the directive is still a sleeping beauty in Poland. The implementation is being prepared. And how do you evaluate the situation in Poland comparing to other countries? According to charts you have sent me, we are not very good. And also, according to the statistics, our results are, our gender balance in big companies is, well, not something to show off.
Yes, but so, as I said, there was a huge number of countries against. And at the end of the day, in the vote, the final vote in 2022, there were only two countries that voted against: Poland and Sweden, for different reasons. Sweden, because they were ahead of the curve already. They don't really need targets to show the gender equality. Poland was the only country in the European Union who voted against. So I would not say that the directive is sleeping in Poland. There are a lot of people busy behind the scenes to make it happen. I'm confident it will happen, but this is a major change, especially in Poland. And so I think that rather than force things, it might be better to try to find common ground, to find allies, to see how we can accommodate. But definitely, this is an important step for Poland to be taken. Let's see. We can show the figures if you want. Poland is at the bottom of the curve. So this is really a directive where Poland will have to step up. Perhaps we can show the curve, the graphs here.
Now, No, I'm afraid not. So now we can turn to Polish case. Mrs. Monika Gorgoń, a member of Executive Board of Warsaw Stock Exchange. What is the perspective of the Warsaw Stock Exchange, which itself is a public company and also a trading platform that lists public companies, and since 2021, Warsaw Stock Exchange has a set of good practices with provisions regarding gender balance. But
First of all, thank you for invitation to today's discussion. And Warsaw Stock Exchange, as a key financial institution in Poland, but also public company and a trading platform, is aware of the crucial role that diversity plays in corporate governance, but also in long-term growth of companies. And we know that the research consistently shows that gender diversity boards contribute to the better decision-making, better finance results. But in Poland, we are still in under discussion, and the final framework is shaped by legislative efforts, and we're still waiting for the final project. The Warsaw Stock Exchange participate in a public consultation relating to transposition of this directive to the Poland legislation. And according to our estimation, the obligation to comply with the requirements of this directive, depending of course of the method of the transposition, will apply approximately to 160 companies in our regulated market. So this is a quite large number. And yes, 160. Yes. So this is a quite large number, and we have a big challenge also as a trading platform. So we would like to support our companies, and now we are focusing to ensuring some balance that this implementation of this regulation will take place in a way, of course, which increase the diversity of governance, but also support the long-term development of the capital market. So it's a challenge in Poland.
Quite a big challenge. And do the companies ask you for this help, or just it's your own initiative?
I think that initiative.
Yes, okay. Okay, the next question is to Mr. Atli Stannard, because we know, we have heard that it's not very easy to implement the directive. And can you say that from the regulatory point of view, the Women on Boards Directive should be quite easy to implement in the legal frameworks of your countries? And what could be biggest challenges in the implementation?
Thanks, Anita. Yeah, I come to this as a lawyer. I mean, we at Covington have been working with European women to help identify ways to implement the legislation effectively in the member states. And from a legal point of view, this is a relatively simple measure to implement. I mean, how member states do it is to a certain extent up to them. There are options, but ultimately, it is a relatively straightforward piece of legislation that needs to be adopted, either amending corporate law, or some countries have done it through changes to stock exchange rules where those are legislatively driven. But I mean, Poland is not alone, I should say, in having missed the implementation deadline. So member states are having challenges. That's fairly common, I'm afraid, for European law. It is not unusual for member states to miss the implementation deadlines.
Have to implement, yes? So they don't have any option.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. The countries are obliged to do so, and if they don't, they could face sanctions from the European Commission, which most countries want to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. We hope that we would avoid these sanctions. So now, Mr. Aris Dimitriadis from Greece. As I know, you have been strongly advocating for gender balance in boardrooms in Greece, where presently women have around 27% share on boards of listed companies, as I know. Is it correct? And what barriers have you encountered in your country to increase the gender balance? Oh, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I was muted. Not to create a problem. Okay, I said thank you very much to the panel. Thank you very much to you for the invitation, the Polish counterparts. I need to say that I also represent the Non-Executive Directors Club, because it was through the NET Club that we met Hedvige, and through Hedvige we shared the common view that we should work hard in order to improve the number of the unrepresented gender, as we say, in the boards. And you are very correct. It was around 27 with the new legislation that was passed by the parliament last month. We have a new limit to achieve, a new threshold, which will be 33%. So this is very good news for us. Of course, we work on the legislation to be implemented in the entire spectrum. Currently, it's only on the it gives this 33% in the large stock represented companies. We welcome very much the works of European women on boards, and Hedvige participated and spoke to the Greek corporate audience last year, which was very, very important. As you can understand, any change in law, it's always difficult. However, we are very happy that we managed to achieve this 27%. But it is a constant effort, because you need to produce new BOD members, non-executive especially, through education and through discussion, but the effort so far shown that we can achieve very good results when we blend the participation in boardrooms. And now we have a new, as I said, a new threshold to achieve, which we hope will help to see the unrepresented gender in even higher positions, not only just as simple members, but also as chairwoman and or executive vice chairwoman, which is a very important role.
And I have also read that your bill that introduces this 33% minimum limit for women's share also would refer to some extent to large unlisted companies in Greece, yes? And how about them? Did they agree eagerly to be covered by such regulations?
You are very right. The initial position of the Net Club was to have the same limit in all companies, not only the large, even the non-listed. It focuses on the large ones. There is a good skeptic behind it, because you understand of the expenses and the efforts to change the BOTs, etc., etc. However, together with the Greek industrial associations and the Athens Chamber of Commerce, we work very hard to explain all the good things that can happen from the implementation of this blend of mixture of participation in the BODs. From the company's perspective, it was received very well. The difficult part now is that you can understand will take some time to have the right candidates, because it is not just to follow a legislation, it's to this effort to become, let's say, a necessity in the companies when they will see the benefits. That's why we continue our efforts with European Women on Board in talking to all the Chamber of Commerce in Greece and explain them the benefits.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mrs. Maria Sipila, I think that in Finland, a lot of companies understand the value of gender balance, and Finland has quite successfully implemented Women on Board Directive, and as I read, without any direct penalties embedded in the law. Yes? So it's quite strange. And according to a Finland Chamber of Commerce, women currently hold approximately 31% of board positions in Finnish listed companies. Which policies or initiatives had the greatest impact on this success? And maybe there are some strategies, practices that facilitated the change and that you could recommend in other countries.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. And of course, the law has just been passed, so that we will see the real implications towards the end of next year, I would say. But I would say that already now we are seeing impact as the shares of women, especially on non-executive boards, are rising, currently around 38%, while corporations are now preparing for this change coming out of the EU directive. And self-regulation has been a driving force for boards in Finland, and it explains part of the development so far. In the corporate governance code, we used to have that the board should have both genders, but now it includes that they should have the equal representatives of both sexes, and there's also requirement in terms of numbers coming directly from the directive. And we have seen that a democratic process where various organizations, including employer and employee organizations and different board organizations, have been involved in several hearings. So these hearings have been arranged by the Ministry of Justice. So this has really helped finding the common agreement. And also these type of hearings were arranged by the Finnish Security Market Association for the Corporate Governance Code. And on top of this, organizations could give their opinion in the open online process, which is, I understand, not in place in other European countries. And the governance code that is aligned with legislation has been very important to drive gender balance in the country that follows self-regulation. And although there are no penalties set by law, like you said, there's a separate government decree in terms of reporting, and also in the governance code, the reporting part is covered. So there may still be penalties set by the Finnish Financial Authority for failing to report. And so I would say that this kind of a process where very well prepared directive and things like this will help countries to get through this directive.
But have there been any tensions and barriers in drafting this law in Finland? Because I don't think that everybody welcomed the changes, yes, unanimously. So, and if these barriers were linked to leadership mindset, market structure, political factors?
Yes, that's a very good question. And overall, there was a consensus across political parties, and that this directive is really needed and it's welcome. And there was also a report done by the government on challenges women face in the listed companies in progressing to leadership and board positions. So this actually report formed kind of like a first ground for the implementation. And there, of course, in terms of details, there are some differences between various organizations on how far the directive should go. For example, in terms of size of companies and nomination committees, and in terms of member state options, whether those should be used or not. And for those you not using member state options, thought that this would make the change happen faster. And however, the final legislation was then drafted based on the majority opinion and specifically using a very interactive process. So, like mentioned, an event was arranged to discuss with various organizations, and after that, an open hearing process online to express opinions for the directive. So, changes for the corporate governance code were used to align these two, and also in terms of timing. So the corporate governance update and the legislation update were kind of worked hand in hand.
Okay, thank you very much. So now the question to Mr. Atli Stannard, because the Women on Boards Directive covers hundreds of big public companies that have, of course, their a big influence in the economy. However, as much as 99% of EU business is composed of small and medium companies that will be not covered by the directive. By the way, these small and medium companies have sometimes better gender balance than big ones, as in Poland. But anyway, so what should be the next EU, maybe European Commission, next priority to ensure bigger participation and bigger influence of women in business?
Thanks, Anita. Yeah, I mean, personally, I'd love to see the directive's targets applied across all companies, but that is more complicated. I mean, I recognize there can be difficulties for small and medium companies to meet the targets of the European Women on Directive. But another challenge is representation across managerial level of women. And whilst women are often even overrepresented, particularly in professional services, in the intakes of large companies, they are less well represented in higher ranks, generally above middle management. And I should say here the EU's powers are more limited. I mean, there are clear public policy interventions that can help, but those are generally interventions that would be taken at a member state level. So things like good childcare provision, shared family leave, those have been shown to increase retention of women in the workforce at higher managerial levels. These, as I say, are not generally areas that the EU regulates. They rather fall to member state governments, but they would be helpful in increasing women's representation and power, as you say, within business across the board, possibly even more so than merely imposing these same representative targets at the very top of all companies.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think, and by the way, the good example would be the case. Yes, if big companies has diverse boards and they have good results, I think that everybody would copy them. And the question, the question to Mrs. Nuyens, can we say that with Women on Boards regulation, you are truly laying the groundwork for lasting change in the business world in Europe, because the directive in the intention of European Commission is not ruled forever. But can we expect that, considering the dire demographic situation, companies will anyway be trying to try to be more diverse and without even the threat of sanctions?
Yes. So unfortunately, the experience and the figures of the last 20 years show that if you don't take measures, nothing changes. So the idea that at the helm of companies by magic, you would have more women entering, that's not happening. We can show it in the figures. So the number of women in countries that have taken actions has multiplied by 5. The number of women in board positions in countries that did not do anything, was multiplied by 1.5. And so even now you have countries in Europe where the number of women is 10%. So can you imagine how many years? But I would like to say something on top of that. What we actually want is better governance in boards, better performing boards. And what we see from research is that when you have more women in boards, not only you have better gender balance, but actually women come better prepared in the board meetings. They create a different governance, a different board dynamics. Very often women come with different nationalities. They are younger. They bring a different skill set, and the role of the chair becomes essential. And there you're right. It's not only creating diversity around the table, it's also use that diversity. And that is why what Aris was saying, it's also so important to have female chairs, mixed chairs. What I can also say from research is that with gender balance in boards, you actually create a ripple effect later on. You create a ripple effect down the drain. And last but not least, the demographics. Well, we all know through Europe that we face declining birth rates. Well, I don't think that with all male boards we're going to solve this. So we need a gender balance, we need a diversity of skills to really be ready to take on the challenges of tomorrow. So it's just good governance.
Okay, thank you very much. But I wonder if, for instance, we have this, we reach this limit provided by the European Commission, that if we leave the companies without any regulations after that, it's a risk that we will go back to the old limits, the lower limits for women, or not, rather?
I don't believe that. The education rates of women keeps increasing. So the number of highly educated women keeps increasing. You rather have a problem the other way around. So what we see is the young male leaving schools, they get very underprivileged positions. What you also see in countries that have been starting much earlier, like France, is that they started with quota at board level. Now it is at executive level, and then they increase it to all companies. In Spain, for example, they were very much ahead. Now they have gender balance in all bodies. Legal bodies, supervisory authorities, the government. So it's rather when you start something, it then extends to other areas. And then what Maria was saying from Finland, the best thing is when actually choosing the best candidate at board level becomes part of the governance code. Because that has nothing to do with gender. It has to do with having transparent selection processes, be professional, and really make sure that the best candidates are chosen, that there is assessment on efficiency and accountability, and then it becomes just a way to better perform as a company.
Okay, I hope that companies would understand this idea. And now, Mrs. Monika Gorgoń, what needs to happen in companies to ensure that board diversity is not just a compliance exercise, but a lasting transformation of corporate leadership?
Yes, I think that we should regard the diversity and the all transformation in corporate leadership as an opportunity. We need to take proactive steps to widen the talent pool, ensuring that the qualified people, especially women, have the opportunity to lead. And it's my private opinion, but I personally believe that the new regulation will open the doors for many wonderful, ambitious women. And the president of the management board, supervisory board, and the top position will become the norm, determined by their experience, education, leader skills, not just the legal requirements. I think that the diversity directive should be seen also as a part of the larger demographic strategy to ensure the competitiveness and sustainability business in the long term. And finally, from the perspective of the Warsaw Stock Exchange, I have to admit that there are at the financial market, the capital market, there are many investors who strongly declare that they will invest only in company where diversity is ensured in the appropriate level.
Listen, I think that investors do perfectly understand that diversity gives a competitive advantage, yes, to the companies. You mentioned that you are going to help companies. I know that our Ministry of State Assets announced yesterday guidelines for companies controlled by the ministry. There are around 50 companies, guidelines that would facilitate support them in implementing the regulation, yes. And among these guidelines, they were not only the recruitment policy, but also all these HR policies, friendly towards not only women, but also not only to mothers, but fathers, and generally more flexible and better for people. So I don't know how about your company, but I think that Warsaw Stock Exchange has always have a quite big participation of women in its management board and in the boardroom. Yes, so I think that
yes,
you are quite supportive.
Yes, before the legislation appeared, we took many activities to increase diversity. First of all, for years we encouraged the listed company to recognize gender diversity as a competitive advantage. And we promote the good governance practice, including diversity through implementation of the best practice for the Warsaw Stock Exchange listed companies. But we also are the partner of many projects, diversity projects to support mentoring, networking. And the purpose of these activities is to show that the capital market, the all financial market is the market open to diversity, and the presence of women, including the top position, the boards, is the essential element to building the inclusive and the best teams and boards with high level potential to develop the business. And in the context of the new law, we have recently launched the new project. They called the Warsaw Stock Exchange Future Bridge. The bridge because our mission as a trading platform is also to connect and help the public companies. And this future bridge is a holistic approach combining education, mentoring, networking, and support for the women leaders and the public companies in the process of implementation of the new law. Our mission is to work together to prepare for the challenge of the modern management and, of course, the sustainable development.
Thank you very much. I think that sustainability is one of this, and ESG is one of these cornerstones, yes, also of this change, diversity change. And Mr. Aris Dimitriadis, how do you think what needs to happen in companies from the Greek perspective in Greece to ensure that this board diversity is a lasting transformation in corporate leadership, also in the mindset of business leaders?
Correct. You mentioned mindset, and I need to take from Hedvig's point when she mentioned about to choose the best candidate rather than to focus on, let's say, gender or any other situation that represents a person. The legislation is very important. We are very happy that we have this new legislation, that it shows the way. But we need to work with boards. We need to work with people in order to prepare the future leaders. I think. And to that extent, we need to understand we are living in very interesting times. You see, on the other side of the Atlantic, peculiar presidential decrees are signed, and great European ideas are abolished. Anyway, for me, the best way is to look at the examples of existing companies that use diversity at their boardroom. Of course, women, the gender is the first element we need to work with, but we need to work with other elements as well, aging, ethnical origins, background in terms of education. All these are very important factors. For me, we need to look and use the examples of existing companies that have diverse boards, and they are very successful. And I believe not only in Greece, but all over Europe, there are companies like startups, which are based on new ideas, new let's say business landscape, that they have diversity very well into their boardrooms, and this should be the case studies we need to use and explain to existing, whether in the stock exchange, non-listed companies, public companies, as already mentioned, from the stock exchange perspective, the capital market committees. We need to use them as the way to change the mentality, because at the heart of this matter is the culture and the values of each company. So we need to help them understand that they need to give a very strong, solid meaning when they have values like transparency, like equality, like diversity, which sometimes is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you mentioned startups, and so we could ask Ms. Maria Sipila that you have the experience with this venture capital and new companies, and that generally are quite young, not only in terms of their existence, but also in terms of their leaders. So can you expect the generation change that do you see in venture capital sector and innovative medtech sector companies? Do they better understand the value of diversity, gender balance, or not?
Yes, thank you very much. Very good question. I would love to answer yes to this question, but unfortunately, this is not the case still today. Wow. So, of course, we have lately seen great progress in terms of women in leadership teams in medtech companies. Very competent women, even as CEOs, but in SMEs overall, the share of women in C-level is even lower. So, and varies between 20 to 30%. So, and even lower in many countries. So, in large corporations overall, in Europe, the situation is better than in startups and SMEs overall. And also in health, the women actually form a majority of workforce. But what comes to decision making and these top level positions, so we are not seeing the same trend. In Europe, only 17% of the deep tech startups have at least one woman founder, and the share of total capital raised is even less. So it's very low percentage, although it's been lately increasing. And I think we need role models and also encouragement and training for women leaders still in deep tech, including medtech sector. And it would help if we had more women VCs that would invest in female-led companies and would announce their investments and how many female-led companies they have invested in, for example. Of course, in venture capital, gender can be a driving force, but all elements need to be perfectly in place to make a solid investment case. So that's clear.
Yeah, exactly. You can't invest in a company that's only because it's founded by women. Yes. Okay, but and Mr. Ali Stannard, yes, increasing the number of women on boards is a big step forward. But again, what should be done to create truly inclusive leadership? Truly inclusive and diverse leadership. What should be the next priority of companies to develop this mentoring, and maybe companies and maybe business organizations to invest in mentoring, leadership development, or maybe more radical company changes within companies, or policy changes in companies? Yes.
Yeah, of course, the directive alone is not sufficient. I mean, it's a relatively blunt instrument. And also, I think we're looking at two separate but linked issues. The one is representativeness, which is really what the directive gets at. And the other is inclusiveness. And legally imposed targets, such as the directive makes member states legislate for, can, of course, help make boards more representative, as Edwige has said so eloquently. It forces greater parity in the number of female and male board members. But even in countries like Italy and France, where, as we said, you already meet the directive's objectives in practice, the proportion of women in executive, and in particular the senior-most executive board positions, still remains lower. And I know that some of European Women on Boards research shows that not all women on boards feel fully involved in the working of those businesses. So inclusivity takes more work than just meeting those targets. And I think their mentoring is important, as are the attitudes of managers at all levels. Managers, when they are looking at selections of people to appoint to middle management, senior management levels, need to ensure that at least the pool from which they're appointing is balanced. They need to ensure that they are I think it's helpful that they be trained to ensure that they don't merely recruit people who look and sound like themselves. They go for a more diverse board, which leads to better business outcomes and brings perspectives to business which are not otherwise available. And they have to ensure that those individuals feel included, feel able to contribute fully and be listened to equally within those boards and within those organizations. And I think the two, representativeness and inclusion, are intertwined. So representativeness at board level and managerial levels is, of course, an important indication of inclusivity. And as I said before, retention over time is essential to achieve greater representativeness and inclusion. And that can be, of course, a challenge, as we've seen, but I hope at least that greater representativeness on corporate boards, driven by the implementation of the European Women on Boards Directive, will encourage changes down the corporate ladder.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. And Mrs. Nuyens, what do you think about it? That it would be enough. I mean, this change, but maybe we should have some more radical policy changes.
No, I don't believe in radical things. This is about long-standing improvements. And I would like to give two examples. I represent the banking industry. There have been study over study by the European Banking Authority that has showed that when you have a bank with an all-male board, the portfolio of the bank is both more risky and less profitable. So for the European Banking Authority and the European Commission, having a better balanced board is element of good risk management and good performance management. So that's one example. And that's why the European supervisors are looking at how banks organize their boards. So that's one. Second, we have been talking a few times about which companies are really best performing. And we know that selection process, choose the right candidate, is part of that. We also know that now more and more good companies review their board dynamics every year. They ask external help. They do not call it inclusion. They call it board performance. So how is the chair actually including and using the skills around the board? It's about how is the board playing two major roles that it needs to play: challenge the management and support it. So that is called board assessment, board performance, and it is actually a word that represents what we in this discussion call inclusion. And it's one of the major elements that will make the success of a company.
Thank you very much. And we mentioned, and we a few times during the discussion, the talents, that the women should not be nominated to boards based on their on the fact that they are women, but on talent and capabilities. And another question to Mrs. Nuyens: what would be your advice to women that are ready and eager to take on a board position? And the same question would be asked to other participants of our discussion. So first, Mrs. Nuyens, what do you advise these women?
Yes, so I really think, I don't like the word radical, but I really like the word that this is a golden age for women, also in Poland. And I advise women in Poland, we have many women eager and ready for board positions, for executive position. So join a network, train yourself, open up yourself to this possibility, make a board CV, let you advise, and look beyond Poland. Poland has such great talent, so there is no reason you should limit yourself to Poland. A lot of boards now are remote, so look it up. Also look at startups, look at advisory board positions. This is in the golden era, and I can only recommend the work that Ivona is doing with the FLB, with the mentoring programs. We have programs at European level as well to make you board ready. It's very easy, very accessible, so this is the golden age for women.
Perfect. But we would like to keep our talents in Poland, the big talent. And Mrs. Maria Sipila, what would be your advice also, maybe? Something that worked in Finland?
Yes. Well, I feel that we have a lot of competent women, and I think companies need to work a bit harder to expand the pool and really to find the suitable candidates. And so there is a lot of opportunities. And also, I think that the criteria, we need to be a bit careful with that. And that's also in the directive that we need to look at the competencies and criteria carefully. But then again, if the criteria is to look for women who have CEO experience from large stock-listed companies. So we all know that there are not too many women in Europe with that experience. Sure. So then we need to kind of understand that maybe downgrade a bit and also give women a chance to grow in board positions. So this would be my advice, and also to have a kind of an open mindset about this and being aware of these unconscious biases in recruitment processes.
Yes.
So I think that yes, we just for economies to prosper. So we need to make sure we are using full potential of all kinds of skills available, and whether, like what we discussed, different nationalities, age, or gender.
Okay, and I think it's a very important point that with this policy, we are not trying to push up the women, but we are trying not to lose talent. Yes, I think, because we are losing talents on the way. And Mr. Aris Dimitriadis, what's your point? What would you advise women? Because you mentioned this, the companies need talent, not exactly women, but women talent.
I like the idea, the notion of Hedvige, the golden age of women. Of course, this reminds the Greece again. It is ancient, the golden age of Pericles. For sure, we need to further support women. There are many areas we need to improve and assist women to go to these higher echelons in companies. For sure, for reasons already mentioned, like demographic, women are more and more advanced in the positions in the corporate environment, and especially in the board of directors, in the boardrooms. But we need to see more women, more commuting between countries. We need talents all over Europe. We need to support their education, and most and foremost, we need to work with all relevant organizations like European Women on Board, like local ones in Greece, the Net Club, and other institutions to provide better education on them, and discuss how companies can utilize all this potentiality that is hidden in women, but not only women, to all the talented people we have in our companies, or even in our countries, or even in the European spectrum.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mrs. Monica Gorgon, what would be your advice for women? How could they get to the top?
So I agree that we have many talented women, but we need more visible women leaders. And there is a beautiful sentence which said the American activist Marian Wright Edelman, that you can't be what you can see. And after all, nothing but self-confidence and initiative and give the courage to follow one dream, more than the example of the people, women, who have successfully realized them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And Mr. Atli Stannard, what would be your advice for ambitious women? But
yes, ambitious and skilled women. I mean,
yes.
Look, there are maybe two things. One is, I would, and this is advice for all candidates, I would think about what it is that your experience enables you to bring to companies that will help those companies succeed effectively and do the best that they can. And what is it that distinguishes your experience from that of others? So that's one piece of advice. And the second is, I mean, there is it's generally said that when men see a job advert which has 11 characteristics that are essential, and they meet 3 of those characteristics, they say, great, I'm ready, and they apply. Whereas women will see 11 characteristics and they meet 10 of them and they say, gosh, I'm not quite ready for this position. I think women should look for how they can best show that they meet the broader needs of companies on boards, and they should put themselves forward, because it's only by putting yourself out there, by preparing yourself well for board use, by taking whatever training you might need, that you can get into those positions of on boards. And once you have a good body of women on those boards, echoing many of the other speakers on this, you will drive more interest, and you create more opportunities for women to see others like themselves on those boards, and also to have examples of successful paths into those senior positions in business.
Okay, so thank you very much for your opinions during our debate. This was very interesting and also practical. We have some historical background and also current evaluation of current situation, and also a step forward what the situation would be in future, and also some practical advice. So thank you very much, and I'm sure that with this Women on Board Directive, we will have also more role models among women that young generation could follow. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.